It's about that time. It's about that time. We'll see who the real troopers are. So I'm a little late. Have some things to take care of, but I'm here. I still wanted to get this out. Still wanted to have a nice just conversation with you guys. Probably gonna do a super chill stream, but if you're here this late, I really appreciate you. Yeah, I mean, you guys are the real troopers. I know I'm supposed to go on about, I don't know, maybe an hour or two ago, but as life happens, you gotta adjust, and so some things you gotta take care of. So finally got a chance to make it, and I'm glad that y'all stuck around and y'all are here with me. So man, it's been an interesting week thus far. We're about halfway. I'm definitely looking forward to. I mean, I'm really definitely looking forward to seeing how things kind of pan out as we go into the CPI print that we got coming up here. I believe on the 10th. So we'll talk about that for a sec. Yeah, we're gonna see how things are gonna, really start to define themselves as we continue on with this journey. Are we, finishing this bottoming pattern and heading higher, or is this a fake out? And I really think the CPI print, and so the week following this week is going to be a big week, so we can see sentiment in the market because, like I always say, markets are nothing but the the human nature and its repetitiveness through time. So there's certain things that we see repeat, and as humans, that's one thing about humans, we don't change. We do things a little bit differently, but the inherent nature, the way that things kind of go through time, is humans create a pattern, and so the pattern is, with these bear markets, humans at some point switch it in their mind and say, "Hey, things have gotten to a price point to where I want to start putting in a lot more money." And so, as we kind of, like I said, hopefully see this bottoming pattern happen, we can see what happens from there. Yes, unrugged. The rugging happened, but now the unrugging is happening. So, like I was saying before, appreciate you guys for even still sticking around. I have some things to take care of earlier, but nonetheless, we still go on. So, got my guy Joseph in the house. What's going on? Also, let's see who we got. We got Wade in the house. What's up? What's up? Cool, man. But yeah, like the biggest thing that I've been just doing a lot of thinking of, these headlines that we're seeing. China, Taiwan. Now this is the big thing that's been going on this past week with Nancy Pelosi going to Taiwan, shaking hands and kissing babies, doing the whole political thing. And the question is, what's gonna happen next? There's some things that we can say, hey, we got an idea, some catalyst that we kind of been seeing brewing. And my thing is, I really like paying attention to how people posture themselves towards the same thing. So how does China see this? How does Taiwan see this? And then how does the United States see this? And then now all of them have their own unique message that they're trying to get out to their people. Now from there, whose message is justified? And then after these justifications start to get, I basically say, prescribed to the masses of people, because that's all it is. Everything is propaganda. Anytime that we're seeing news, especially here in the United States, dealing with another country and what's going on there, it's our view of what they're doing. And so you got to understand that this is a certain lens. This is what the definition of propaganda is: making a mass of people see things in a certain way. And so, as we are, for now, bystanders looking at China and Taiwan, what does that mean to us? But then, what does that mean for Taiwan, and what does that mean for China? So it's very interesting. I got some articles that I'm gonna pull up here, and the question is, the big aggressor in this case, it seems like it's China. They're the one in the wrong. They're the one that's showing some type of, like, I would say, military presence in a place that maybe they don't have to, or do they? Right? With Here's the thing about the United States. The United States does nothing unless they get some type of benefit from it. They're not just out here just helping countries willy-nilly just because they want to. They're getting some type of benefit. So the thing is, when it comes to Taiwan, we've got to understand, well, why is Nancy Pelosi even going there? What is the benefit for the United States? And so before I get into that, let's address everybody in the chat. Like I said, my bad, have some things to take care of, but we're here, we're live, we're doing this now. So got Isaac Hernandez in the chat. What's up? Hope everything is well. But yeah, so back to it. Why is the United States, Nancy Pelosi, going to Taiwan? Well, I've got a couple theories. about that. So the biggest thing is this whole thing in the United States is, man, we need to be able to get things done here, or at least have some type of ally that could always be in good graces with us. So these supply constrictions that we're experiencing, hopefully they don't exist in the future. So making those great relationships. So a big thing in technology right now. So, this computer or this phone that you're looking at right now, even this camera that I'm looking at, all of this technology that we're using involves one particular thing: semiconductors, so chips, right? Now, these things are so important in today's time because it seems like basically everything has them. So, one thing about Taiwan, they are basically one of the largest chip manufacturers in the whole entire world. So, I believe they take up, and so there's a lot of like sub areas, but they take up the largest share of like, hey, they distribute and they push out the most chips. So, it is pretty convenient, a place that just put into, I guess you can say, there. I think Joe Biden signed it. I got to go back and check it. But there's a bill called the CHIPS Act, basically saying, hey, we need more chips. We got to spend more money trying to get this thing going here. So that's a big thing for the United States right now. It's like, hey, look, we need chips. We need to keep trying to do more innovation in the space of technology. And so we know all this technology, it requires chips. So we got to start making some allies and some friends till we can get those chips without having any issues. So with Taiwan, basically, it's almost up for grabs. We can kind of put it in that kind of terminology. I know sometimes it sucks to kind of talk about whole countries like that, but that's all this stuff is. This is about power and about land and about being able to say, hey, you're my ally. Hey, I scratch your back, you scratch my back even more. For China, why they want Taiwan is because, let's just be honest, they believe that Taiwan is theirs from a heritage basis, from like their first principles base of society, right? Even though maybe it may not be justified, but nonetheless, they see the benefits of having Taiwan within their initiative as well. So I know we talk about NATO quite a lot. So that includes Europe, right? That includes obviously the United States, I believe Canada, a lot of, I would say, very well off, doing decent. These aren't third world countries, but this is NATO. But have we ever thought about the opposition, the opposite side? So there's a whole opposite side, a conglomerate of these countries coming together that's saying, maybe we don't need that US dollar. Maybe we can try something else. If we all get together, maybe we can do our own thing and overthrow the United States and the whole NATO initiative. So countries like China, oh, what about Brazil, Russia, India, South Africa? There's a lot of people in all those countries, right? So here's the thing. This is a battle of power. And the people who have the best technology, so the conglomerates, the groups and the nations that have the best technology, the most forward-looking prospects, the people who are able to enact and push this technology out, the people who have the supply chain to do so, at the end of the day, when it comes down to really having this, whatever it may look like, war, it may be like we're seeing a little bit of bomb action, it may be some type of cyber war, but it's all going to come down to who has the best technology. That's the time that we live in. You can't tell me different. So now that we understand this, it's all about, okay, how can we get access to this technology and get building and get going fast? So Taiwan is a big part of that. Even though they're a small little island, they control a lot more than what we know and what we think. And so the question is China really, really ready to take Taiwan potentially? Or is it all just a flex? Is it all just smoke and mirrors? They're just trying to still show that they have some type of power, but they have other things crumbling in the background. That's the other key here. That's what we're going to talk about today. Do they actually have some underlying issues that maybe question on even if they can afford to go to war with not just Taiwan, though? Maybe it's with the whole NATO conglomerate. Maybe the United States jumps in because we know And I actually, got a chance to talk with a good buddy of mine. I don't know if he's still on the stream, but he commented earlier. He knows a lot of stuff, K Hart. And we were having this conversation. And he was telling me, well, a lot of the stuff within government and between opposing governments, it's like a game of chess. And so, just like any grand chess master, they practice beforehand, before they go to that main match. And so they try to get in the brain of what their opponent is going to do. And then so you play it out. So what these countries do, it's like a big old war room of like, okay, now if we do this, then they'll do that. If we do this, then they'll do that. If they do that, then we do this. All these things. And so they plan all this stuff years out. So best believe that all of this stuff is not by coincidence. Nancy Pelosi did not just go over to Taiwan just because she felt like it. All of this stuff is pre-planned out. And people need to realize they're not even allowed to go and do stuff like that on their own unless it gets approved by the White House. Like, someone of her ranking can't just go and do whatever she wants without consulting with other people and say, hey, is this a good move for us collectively? That doesn't happen. So when you hear in the media that Joe Biden didn't know she was going to go and he's just okay with it, and he has like no bias, no, they're all in this together. They're all trying to do things strategically and trying to make it look like something that it's not. That's the key thing. And then so there's the United States perspective, there's a Taiwan perspective, and there's the China perspective. The China perspective is, United States, you guys understand, right? When's the last time a governing official of that rank has even came to Taiwan? It's been forever. Why are you guys trying to come now? You're violating in certain ways. It is a national security threat because what we're going to look at is, hey, it's very interesting how the U.S. Navy actually has some warships actually in that area now. Why? Because they're cool with Taiwan. They couldn't do that if they weren't. That's a direct threat to China. So with that being said, who's really at fault? Who's poking the bear? I think the United States is poking the bear a little bit here. But China's going to use that as fuel to be like, now that's going to enact what we kind of want to do. And so all of this, I really am starting to learn and look at and see a good portion of it is smoke and mirrors, but it's all going according to how they planned it. But for us, are we going to be in the know to see, okay, well, how does this affect me? Really, it's really to take your attention and put it on something that really doesn't maybe affect you at home, to take you away from the fact that we still got pretty high inflation here in the United States, right? China still has a whole issue with their real estate, and we're going to talk about that in depth, right? China's got a big issue with their banks. They got people revolting. It's nuts out there. But if they could say, oh, wait, hold on, the United States, they've got some issues here. If they could defer the issues or throw it on somebody else, that makes it a little bit more manageable. Because the thing is, a governing body, the whole point is to keep people from being in complete like peril and just not revolting in the streets. The moment that people start revolting in the streets, civil unrest. If you guys watch Ray Dalio's video, if you read his book, you know that civil unrest is a big deal. So here in the United States, and I'm not going to get all into the stuff here, but there's civil unrest over these things, right? And hey, I believe that women should be able to do this. I believe that they should, whatever, right? But when there's civil unrest, just know in the background, there's something else going on. So while y'all are paying attention to that, there's money being moved around, there's power plays, there's land plays, there's show of force. All of these things happen within government. So I wanted to start with that to let y'all know, hey, I'm late because I had to think about this stuff very, very clearly before I came in and presented it in this way. But nonetheless, let's get into it. So let's jump into Bitcoin, Ethereum. We'll look at some of the other stuff in the market, and then we'll go back to this whole thing and really ask and answer the question, is China really ready for war? Because they're trying to make it look like they are. Now, we're going to dive into that. So I appreciate y'all. If y'all haven't already, like the video. If you got a buddy, if you got a homegirl, hey, tell them come subscribe. We're not only talking about crypto and why there's a great opportunity to get to that financial freedom, but it's a fun place to be, right? We have interesting conversations, and through the time that we've been going, we've been talking about some good stuff here. So let's see. Taiwan wants us there, but who knows what China will do? There's no winning. So what I'll say to that is, yes, Taiwan wants a big brother. Big brother. Brother. Taiwan wants a big brother to say, hey, we need some help here. We like democracy. So as we know, in China, there's no democracy there. Dictatorship. One man calls the shots, and he's about to be able to call those shots for a very long time. It's coming up here, where he might have an opportunity for him. It's an opportunity for him, maybe bad for the country, to where he's going to be in power to the day he dies. So he doesn't believe in, hey, you can just do whatever you want. He likes control. Taiwan says, nope, we've been doing our own thing, kind of, but not really. But we say we have a democracy. We want to keep it like that. And so they like other countries that have that same format. United States, democracy, so to speak. But yet there's still a lot of control. Interesting. Very similar, but different. I'll say that. But so Taiwan, they're in a tough spot. The latter, so going with the United States, kind of making friends there, is the easier option, the more preferred option, I'd say. If China kind of gets things to where it goes the way they want it to, they'll just have to give up a little bit of freedom in a sense. Now, I think that's a big deal. I'm an advocate of freedom, being able to have choice of what you do with your living situation, where you decide to work, religion, all that kind of stuff. That type of freedom is great. And not having to do exactly what somebody tells you to do at all times. Now, mind you, when you go to work, yeah, you maybe got to listen to your boss. But at all times, what you can do within your home, not within your home, within the law, all this stuff, interesting. So China, that's how they do it. I mean, they've been able to grow. Their society has grown. Some may say that they have better family units because of this. Some may say the people are more productive there. So, I mean, there may be some benefits. I don't know. It is what it is. But nonetheless, they got a thriving society there, right? So that model does work with certain aspects. Here in the United States, we got a model that works pretty well. Freedom. Everybody can do what they want. But in the same way, everybody can do what they want. Let that sink in. And so it's up to you, right? And things are very, very political here. No, we want this. No, we want this. And so there's never a right and wrong, when there's always opposing forces within the government. You can never have one clear message, one clear way of doing things. And sometimes that's needed, I would say. Having a clear, defined way of doing something, I think, is needed in a lot of cases. But like I said, here, family units aren't as strong as what they were 30 years ago. Wonder why that is? Who knows? Productivity seems like it's kind of on the decline, right? Now people just, when it comes to actually working and working hard, I'd say people are getting lazier and lazier. My personal opinion. I'm seeing it. The younger generation, especially, addicted to apps on their phone all day, every day. I might go on a little rant here, but this is just what I'm seeing. That's just what I'm seeing here. In the United States, we got a lot of freedom, but some of these larger companies control a lot of what we do with our time. And I say time is freedom. And so are you free or not? It depends on how you decide to use that. And so I would say there's a lot of people who have vices here. Maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's other stuff, whatever it is, maybe. China, they maybe have a little tighter grip. I think that's actually, I don't know. I'm not going to impose my thoughts on all this stuff, but it's just to say that no matter what the system is, whether democracy or somewhat of a dictatorship, there's pros and cons to everything. And then so at the end of the day, who's right and who's wrong? Um, I don't know. Some may say when we give people option, that's just the ultimate right thing to do. And so just an interesting topic. Now, with China doing what they're doing, we'll see if they're really about it. But Taiwan, they're in the middle of this thing, but they're a big player in all this. So, segue And this might be a segue type of stream because that's how I'm feeling. But let's get into it. Let's talk about the market here for a second. So boom, let's pop in to Ethereum. So really quickly, let's look to the right. And you know what? Let me change it up a little bit. I'm gonna make it to where y'all can see the whole thing here. So real quick, let's do this one little adjustment and get back to it. Boom. All right. Now we're cooking with grease. Boom. So now the screen should be larger. For all you cell phone users, I got someone say something. Hey, can you make the screen larger? You got it, brother. You got it. So with that being said, let's take a look at Ethereum and some other stuff. So right here, you can see a decently green day. And this is just, a few coins that I keep track of. But nothing too crazy. I mean, anything in between like a 1% gain compared to 24 hours ago from now to maybe 5%, 6%. So pretty even type of day. Nothing too crazy. But I mean, this week is not explosive like how it was the couple weeks prior, obviously. But nonetheless, there's some things going on here that we can take a look at and pay attention to. So what we've seen a clear trend shift from being pretty bearish from the month of April, May, some of June, to some shuffle to a clear uptrend. So we're in this channel, and we're going to dive into this channel in a little bit. But if we just go from the basics of looking at trend line, right, and then there's a couple points that you can kind of take. So you can use these two touch points, 1, 2. And the interesting thing enough is it lines up to where we've been fading out. So let's dive in a little closer so we can all see that. And this is me just doing this fresh for the day. Really haven't been doing too much TA today. So this is live, and I'm kind of taking a good analysis of this as we speak. So my thing is, for trend lines, for them to have some type of meaning, you really would like to have 2 touch points. 3, even better. 4, solid. So what we have here, we have touch point here, right? And then we have this touch point over consecutive days here with these wicks, and then now coming up where we're at today. So us stalling out here makes a lot of sense. Now, with that being said, because the batch of liquidity was right here in previous months, where did we stall out and kind of decide, do we want to go back up or head back down? Was right here in this price area between about like $1,800 Ethereum and $1,700 Ethereum. So we've topped out about 1740, 1750 now. So, but what does that say? Now we're still in a upwards trend. Now, with the larger macro, you want to start from the top. So that's how we analyze that. And so as we kind of sit here, now the overall macro trend in my book has not changed until we break these 2 touch points. So there's 2 separate trend lines for that. So you take your top of the market and then you take your most recent top. And what do you see? Till we start seeing $2,500 Ethereum, this is still bear market. And then typically within bear markets, understanding and learning structure is that within the bear markets, you have these relief rallies and multiple relief rallies. So it's not just one, but 2, 3, 4 relief rallies. So what does that look like? So far, we've had downtrend, 1 relief rally. And so the biggest thing is really understanding things just don't go up. So a lot of time when there's a rebound, it's a 1-2 move. So, or you can call it like an ABC move. So A, B, C, then you continue on, right? Now here, we're shuffling around a whole bunch of smaller congestive ABC movements to a nice push to the upside. And then so same thing here, ABC, ABC, ABC right here to the top. And then so now from here, we need to decide, are we going to continue with the ABC corrective patterns against the larger trend? Or does this start to break down out of this channel and then trend changes. So in the short term, we're in an upward trend. In the long term, we're still in a bearish trend. So if you're trading, you go with the trend that you've seen over, I'd say in crypto. What have you seen over the past month? And over the past month, we've seen uptrend. So this channel is still relevant until otherwise. But what we're seeing is a big point of resistance and trending along with this trend line here. So let's zoom in on that. So as we talk about the channel, and lately, if y'all have noticed, I've been talking about Ethereum a lot more recently compared to Bitcoin because we got some things coming up potentially. I don't know if it's hearsay, but this time seems pretty convincing. But this merge coming mid to late September, or you know it will be there. So having a good eye and looking at the price action for Ethereum to me is important. So with that being said, you see this trend line. We've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a whole week of boring, just lower highs and lower lows. Today was the first day of a little bit of life. The question needs to be, and what do we also see? So we always talk about these median lines here. Caught support, broke through it, used as resistance here. Now, a lot of times when you're in a channel, you have the false breakouts. These are the entry points. If you're swing trading, right? The probability, because trading is probability and understanding the market flow. You stay within channels, you identify your touch points. A lot of times you're like, oh, things are going down, breaking out of the channel for the first time. Generally, those are fake outs, and you come back in the channel. And I could show you guys 50 channels, and you'll see these a lot. So this was a great entry point. And after you've seen this engulfing green candle, this is a great entry point there. And I know I don't really talk too much about the thought process behind swing trades, but we'll do that a little bit today. So anytime that we're using channels here, we want to look at the invalidations, and you want to look at the fake outs, right? And then upon re-entry into the channel, this is typically when you go to the opposite range of the channel. So vice versa, if we had a fake out to the top, the moment we come back, right, there's a good chance that we come back to the bottom of this channel. Maybe that's a short. Up to you, right? So what we're seeing here is this midline coming into play. So, right, what we really want to see is we're coming up on a decision point, and the date that I want us all to pay attention to, that I'm paying attention to, is a CPI print is on August 10th. That is the next most important date for major, I would say, decision time when it comes to this market. Across markets, one trade, one outlook, because all these things are running together, it seems like. But crypto is a little bit lackluster, especially Bitcoin. Ethereum made its hay early on, but Bitcoin is a little lackluster compared to the NASDAQ 100 and even the S&P. So that's an interesting thing to see. So that's also showing me that the more speculative side of investing is lagging behind even traditional markets. Something to pay attention to, because normally it's different. When there's prices going up, you see people go to speculation first, and then kind of follow through with traditional assets like stocks and all that kind of stuff. Or you see that stuff boom first from a percentage standpoint. But what we have here, so what we're seeing is now as we kind of attack this midline, we're going to see if we can get above it, that's going to be big. But then we'll need to maintain it. And so if we do a fib retracement, we need to say, was that enough pullback for us to advance to a higher high? And it just kind of just fulfilled that prerequisite. So we get into the 382. So we got there and we had a wick to the 0.5. And that is your average pullback. It would have been more convincing if we came down to this 0.618 or the bottom of this channel where this 786 is, and then we rebounded. But here's the area of where it's kind of hard to say, because we've been getting rejected here. So let's move this out the way. We've been getting rejected off this main trend line, this bearish trend line, to say, hey, there still may be an opportunity for us to potentially buy some a little bit cheaper. So as of me right now, I'm waiting. Patience is key, right? Picking your spots. For me, I was able to make some good hay on entry points here and here because I recognize we're in the channel. So you have your 2 touch points, right? So I was able to identify touch points. So here and here, and obviously on some swing trades, started taking some profits when we got up here around 1700. So with that being said, this date here. So the next we got 5 days, if we don't see a breakdown and like we starting to hold and we start to get above, right, this trend line, and somehow we start to creep up to this 1700 range, if we get some decent prints, right, so a decent print where inflation is below where it was last month, and let's say it's half a point less, expect that to be good for the markets and for price to start attacking the top of this channel. Just expect that. Now the question is, where will we come to resistance? And so we have a batch liquidity. So if we look at that, we'll take just this recent time here. And so really, like, the batch liquidity doesn't really come into play, right, until this chunk here. And then so we're kind of forming, a lot of trade action here. But I say we kind of would have a chance. And this is if the markets are forward looking and if, right, we have a lower CPI print. So there's always ifs, thens. No one can guarantee that price is going to go anywhere. This is all about probability and understanding the catalysts that lead to the human emotion of why people do things. So we know inflation is a big deal when it comes to that. So now that we understand that base understanding, hey, right, it's only right in how markets move to have something exponential, it peter down, right? So a big move, another move here, you kind of relax a little bit, come off it, only to move higher. Now we're going to talk about the other scenario. If inflation goes higher and we continue to get rejected off of this trend line until the 10th, expect, guess what? Prices to do the opposite, so go down. So the next logical point for it to come down to is this level here. So where we've had top one, top two, and you see a whole bunch of price action, buyers in the market here at this level. So I'll do 2 price points. There is a possibility of, yes, us seeing that $2,000, maybe that $2,100 Ethereum, if things go well with CPI. Because that's it. There's no meeting on the back end of this month. So it may give us an opportunity for things to run a little bit. If not, then what we can expect within, 20 to 30 days time, give or take, is for us to kind of start to come back down and touch these points here. So I'll do a price call, and we may have an opportunity to accumulate some more Ethereum at a lower price. So there's a big difference between 1,200 and 2,100. That's almost a double between those two. So if you look at risk to reward, obviously investing lower, higher reward here. And so since we're here in the middle, right, understanding what's going on before you do anything is a big deal. And so while I would say there may be more, more causation for us to kind of come down and relax a little bit and kind of come trickle lower is because of where we are. So we look at this RSI and we've been touching the top of this metric and we're coming up on it again. So for us to just stay up here for such a long time, I'd say there's a portion where we need to relax and come down with price. And that's, so Ethereum is large enough in market cap because Bitcoin's chart looks very similar, just not as exponential with this week here, but looks very similar. So they're running together. If we look at this on the weekly scale, right, and you can obviously trend change. So on a weekly scale, let's clean that up to where it looks a little bit nicer, easier to see. So on a weekly scale, right, it's been a nice rebound. And so on the weekly scale, what is the RSI saying? Right? RSI is still saying there's more room to the upside. And we're also seeing that we're just on the MACD, we're just flipping green. So we have the metric moving across the moving average, and we just got this first little green candle. And typically, once you get your first green candle, it leads to more green candles. And if we go through the timeline, it at least leads to at least 3 to 4 more green candles, at least when we have one close green candle. And we can go back as long as you like. This is back in December 2018. Green, that's a bear market. So let's look at the bear markets. So right here, you had a couple, but you at least had 2 weeks of some positive price action. But you had some red, but then you go back to having some bullish action. So whenever you have long term, so you like to see this metric and you see it basically, telling you the story. So you see price action being very bearish. So let's make that so where we can see it. On the every side of every bear market is a bull market. And on the every side of a bull market is a bear market. Right? So as we continue on, what do we experience? A lot of liquidity coming into the market, right? 2021, incredible. A mini drawdown, and so there's some type of divergence, right? So so there's a nice little relief rally, a big one in 2021 at the late stages, but nonetheless, what have we been experiencing? Heavy amounts of capitulation and liquidity, and we're finally just starting to see a little bit of green. So we had a fake out here, but generally when you start off with a fairly sizable green candle on this MACD, that may show some credence to things are starting to turn around a little bit. So that's on the weekly. So there's some catalysts with this merge that may perpetuate that to be pretty strong coming up here. So this is an important month. August, September, 2 important months that we are experiencing live. And when we're going to look back in crypto, 2 years from now, you're going to be like, yeah, you guys remember August and September of 2022? It's going to be something to talk about. So that's Ethereum. Now, like I said, we need to see some good things, but I say, we'll see on the daily over like the next 3 or 4 days. Right. So if we go back to the daily, I don't know if we're going to really get too much crazy price action to the upside. We'll see. But as you can see, we need this metric to kind of calm down and pull back some. Maybe come back down to the bottom of this channel, potentially. Right. But on the longer scale, if we get some good information coming in here, the data that we're getting from, our governing bodies, or I mean, the Fed is not even a governing body. They're a privately owned company. But if we can get some good information, that may just be just enough for people in their human emotion to say, okay, we want to go risk on. So that's Ethereum, and we'll just see what happens. I'm not going to predict anything. We're just looking at the probabilities of the ranges of where things can go. And that's it. Play it how you want to play it. I know how I'm doing it. Patience, and I've already accumulated a good amount down here. So if you haven't, and I always say this, if you haven't accumulated a good asset, which Ethereum is showing to be that through the years, if you haven't accumulated anything, let's say the last time you bought Ethereum when it was at 4,500 or even 3,000, if you haven't DCA'd, I'd suggest to do so while we're still down here. Lower your cost basis. And if you've been DCAing this whole time, hey, there's a little bit more options for you. You can be a little bit more patient. Everyone's story is different when it comes to their investing strategy. But accumulating the asset is the goal here. Boom, 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 boom. Cool, cool, cool. So that's Ethereum. Let's do some other coins. I know we normally talk about Bitcoin and Ethereum. Let's talk about Phantom. Phantom. There's some interesting things bubbling up. I don't know if y'all have been paying attention to DeFi lately, but do we want to talk about it? Well, yeah, let's talk about it. So Tomb, maybe a little life going on there. Maybe go over there, check out some things called L shares. Sounds very familiar to the T share. Check those out. Check out Life, the Life aspect of the protocol. Interesting. Liquidity is starting to flow back. Hence why Phantom price is going up. Along with the other parts of the market, but Phantom, its structure, is finally having a little life here. So we know this is a layer 1 that has some potential here for the long term. So it's on discount. But if you look at the chart, Always want to look at the structure of the overall situation first. Look at this, right? So we're on the low part of this metric, but we just crossed over this moving average here. Some may say that's a good thing to see. But if you want to kind of look and see, okay, have we pulled back? Would this be considered enough for a pullback? And yeah, we've already eclipsed this 85% drawback from this level here. So from the top, Phantom is down from the tip top 88%. At its lows, it went down 94%. So it's very interesting because Ethereum at the bottom of its bear market went down 95% last cycle, right? Was that last cycle or the cycle previous? I think it was last cycle, 95% drop. Yep. So when these coins are early, 95% drops are in the game. But if they're staying power, product market fit, if they have an ecosystem that people are bought into and they can use, hey, low gas fees, do you think this has a good chance of trending upwards with the market when liquidity comes back? I think so. And then the question is, well, what has it done previously? Well, if we want to take the trough all the way to the peak, we want to talk about gains. Yeah. So if you look at this from trough to peak, it's sitting right above a 1900x. So put it in percentage terms, that's 191,000%. So typically, its first cycle is going to be most exponential. But even if you cut it in half, even if you cut it in tenths, right, for this next cycle, what may that look like? So let's say the bottom's in, for example, and we'll talk about what things could look like here for this coin in the future. You do a trend-based fib extension. And so, as we know, a lot of the times you exceed, especially at the tip to tops of bull markets, you exceed the top of this 4.2 level. And so, but even if we get to the standard level of 1.6 on the Fibonacci trend-based extension, what does that look like for you? Standard, right? And this is, hey, this is just the one step up above previous highs. And as we know, as coins go through cycles, they outperform their previous high, right? So just going from one step up, you're looking at a 14x from today's price. Do they have users over there? Are they gaining users? Can we see that on chain? I don't know. If you know how to do the research, you can tell. But with that being said, what does the short-term price action look like? So there's this cluster, and then the point where have to be very careful because Phantom can drop, right? Because you can go lower. Like some people think you can't go lower than 95%. You can, because going from 94% to 97% looks like this, or 98% looks like that. So that's only, right, 4 to 5% difference going from, let's say, 94 to 98, 4% difference. So you may think, oh, it's not that much more. So let's say you bought this 94% dip, right? So right here, you can still go down considerable. So you can still go down another 76%. So you see how the numbers work for percentages. I don't know if that we've all seen that or we understand that, how that works. But you can still go lower even on a 94% dip. But typically, products with product market fit, like even Amazon back in the day, dropped 95%. And you have to ask yourself, why do they drop in particular about 92 to like 95% in particular? There's something about numbers of why that happens. I'm going to leave that to you guys to figure out. That's just a Google. But with that being said, let's jump into the short term. So short term, so we know where there's some support. We got some support for Phantom at about 17 cents. So if it pops back down there, hey, I'd say that would be some pretty cheap Phantom. Not financial advice, but we can kind of see the structure. So let's see if we can see touch points here. So anything that makes sense. And we've seen, a nice impulse, right? ABC back down. And then you kind of see things kind of getting congested here. So a point that I can see right away, this resistance is support here. So we can draw a trend line here. And that also coincides with a lot of this price action coming along here. So this is a point to notice. So if price comes back down to 31, right? If we break below it, right? Heads up. If we can hold that, then that's going to be a good sign. Now, when you kind of see, so if you guys remember, like what I was referring to, anytime you have a channel, but even when you have a congestion like this, so you know this price is going sideways, pay very close attention to breakouts. So as we look at this, so to see this even clearer, we're going to put this on an 8-hour chart. So you can start to form this trend line well in advance. And then so after I seen this, right, I would have been able to see, okay, well, and let's kind of zoom in because I really want to drive this point home. This is how you can really start to understand what entry points look like and what entry points make sense instead of just buying willy-nilly. Is especially when you get side. So after you have a decision on which way price is going, so we see an uptrend here, then you have sideways action. You can really see where price is coming to. So you see a wick, and then you also see candle body stopping here at this price here. So you see the touch points at the top here. 1, 2, 3. Same thing here. You see the touch points here. You see candle bodies coming here, but then you also see, right, these wicks stopping here. So you can make this trend line here. The moment where you're like, oh, price is going to keep going lower, where you get a good amount of price action starting to come back, this is where you want to say the fake out comes. So, write this stuff down, you guys. The fake out comes, and then you get this engulfing, right? This engulfing green candle, right? Followed by, another couple candles. This is where you really want to consider, say, hey, you have a nice pullback from price settling. You're still in this upward trend. So mind you, recognizing, are you still in the upwards trend? So look at this, right? Bouncing off the moving average, but also still making higher lows. So that checks that box, yes. So understanding trend first, but then understanding the sub trend. So seeing sideways action, breakout. Do you recover that breakout? Yes. So on candles like this that are, and looking at the structure of the candle, right? It's not one of the candles that has a whole, like a big wick at the top. So you see how this green candle has a big wick. That means there's resistance. That means there's strong buyers coming in here. So an entry point, for example, here on Phantom would have made sense. So if you're a person that's trying to learn trading or swing trading, getting in on something like this, that first breakout after you understand how price is moving, that first breakout, and this is how you go and you grab yourself a nice 17, 18%. It only takes you a couple days, and you come to the top of this range and same thing, you know. And then so you kind of look at trend typically, and then so also looking at price points, and this is like on the intraday, like, okay, do I get in on Phantom at 36, or maybe there's a chance of it coming down to 32? Well, you make those decisions by learning technical analysis. So, and I'm really kind of diving into some of the tricks of the trade because these are just basic things if you're trying to learn to swing trade, right? Because you do 17% over a span of a week, depending on the sizable amount of, capital that you're putting in, you continue to do that to add to your bag. You can really, up your bag, but it does take skill, and not everybody is good at it. But learning these aspects can help you develop the skill to do so. So you're looking at this parallel channel here, but you're also looking at this ascending, right, triangle here. And so same thing here. When you get below the moving average and you see how there's somewhat of support. So what do? You have touch point 1, 2, and you just developed a false breakout here and coming back down 3. So even if like this hadn't happened, right? And if you kind of see price here, you start to see it get below the moving average. So the moving average that we're always using here, the 9 or the 8. So we're using the 9. It's for the short term. You see it break the moving average and start to attack, this trend line, because you could have this trend line from 2 touch points. And then so the moment you start to see it impede on the trend line, and then guess what? You see price action with the red candles, and you see a lot of buyers coming in, buying this candle back up. And then you start to see sideways action. Well, the moment you start seeing these green candles and you come across And so you clearly had a support here, and you come across the moving average. The probability of the price action going higher in the short term, now mind, this is super, super short term, is higher probability versus you buying at the top of where the resistance is. So this is how you can understand the difference. So for example, if you were buying this top, you'd only be up 5% versus learning a better entry point, which is down here to today's price, and that's putting you at more than 3 times the percentage. So you're at 17%. And that's just understanding, and this is an 8-hour chart, so this is just solely looking at really like the last, what, 4 or 5 days of price action. So, I know I don't really talk too much about, I really don't talk about trading a lot. I know how to do it. I really reserve 20% of my portfolio for trading, 80% for the long term. But I'm really trying to trade to accumulate more for long term, really, if I do. And that's a big if. But learning how to look at things objectively. Now, so if we kind of look at the midterm, well, what do things look like? So if we invert, so we want to take this pullback and say, well, was this enough? Was that enough? Did we come back to a level? So we're going to talk about this top here. Did we come back to a level that was doable? So a typical pullback, you'll see 0.32, 0.5, right? Typically, if we only get to the 0.236, that's not enough. So we came back to 0.5. So that's enough for the midterm to be able to push higher. And as you see, we've already broken this top. So now as we talk about this top, for us to continue higher, what do we want to do? We want to take the major pullback and see, well, where are the next levels of where we can go from a Fibonacci standpoint. So we'll do that first. So that next level, what that looks like is 40 cents, and then 2.6, 47 cents. So that's how you use the fib extension to kind of get your numbers based projection. Then you look at volume and liquidity and see where it's sitting. So we had a lot of trade range here. And as you can see, the biggest resistance is getting past where we are now. Now from here, there's some good opportunity for us to kind of start attacking these tops. And so what do you see? This top aligns very well. Some may say it's a coincidence. I say it's just human emotion, psychological levels, and numbers and math, right? But as you can see, the candle bodies line up very well with, right? If you line that straight with that fib level, very close. So that's at 40 cents. This is at 41 cents. This top here. And as you can see, as things kind of got torn down with Phantom, its trend line right here. So this is a relevant point of resistance. So that's going to be relevant right here as well. And then same thing, this is kind of within the ballpark, with this fib level, this top here. And so that's to the upside. If, like I said, if everything goes well with the CPI print, with traditional markets, with Bitcoin and Ethereum, then we'll see Phantom, doing some good stuff. So like Phantom is like a leveraged position, so to speak, compared to Bitcoin, which you're going to get outsized returns on Phantom, obviously. So even from today's price, getting back up to this range, if things go pretty well, you're looking at like a 30% gain. But if you've been paying attention, sniping lows, right, you've already got a nice 64% gain. And if you were paying attention during the main capitulation back here in June, you're at pretty much a double. So for a main layer 1 token, that's pretty good. I know Maddox performed pretty good as well, among some others, right? But I'm looking at coins that have long-term perspectives, right? I think Maddox has some credence there too. But for some of the yielding plays here in Phantom, it's a very unique ecosystem. Now to the downside. So we've talked about capability to the upside, and we talked about this small little range here. Now we want to talk about, well, where can things kind of come down to? So you've seen wick, and a good portion of the candle bodies being here, right? And so that's where a lot of that volume profile was to the downside. So we'll bring that back up, right? And then so you've seen some resistance right here, wick up here. So yeah, I'd say there's some credence coming along here. And And then so yeah, the risk to reward, I'd say, if things don't do well, right? We're kind of going to use our eyeballs for this. And so, there's a batch of liquidity because we're kind of we're in this point here where there's some resistance, right? I'm sorry, some support here. But I would say if things get pretty bad, right, the next point of support would be this 31 cents. And then after that, and kind of looking, because, there's not one necessarily defined top right here. Let's kind of dive in a little bit closer. So we have, 1, 2, 3, ABC move, downtrend. And so we see like a batch of liquidity kind of sitting right here where there's indecision, and we've seen a support right here, a little bit lower support here. And so, we can kind of pull this over because there's some wicks there. And so just the levels, and this is all about just knowing levels and seeing, okay, does price settle there? And then once we see price start to settle, then you could, enact on whatever you're doing. But yeah, if you're looking for some cheap phantom, be on the lookout for 31 cents. And then the next major level, 23 cents. And then the Hail Mary buy order down here at 18 cents, right? And so, like I said, just because we're getting some life, don't go too crazy, right? Because we're still on the fence. This could be the bottom. And then so you're going to be kicking yourself if you took no action. But you're also going to be kicking yourself if you threw your entire bag, all of your capital in right now because you have FOMO. Because understand there's relief rallies in bear markets. So just like Ethereum, just like, Bitcoin, same thing. I will not be convinced until you take the high and the touch points, until we've broken this and it's clean and we got some type of support off of it, right? Until we've eclipsed like that 50-cent phantom, don't expect things to get extremely bullish. And there's relief rallies that get people just to believe just enough to come and wipe everybody going long. That's how the market works. And so we got to see. We need more convincing because there's still a lot on the table. Even if you do dollar cost average, so we get there, just confirmation is a big deal here, and time. So there's that. So we did a nice little price analysis of Phantom and Ethereum, went in depth. I wasn't going to do it at first, but I said, hey, why not? But I hope those little tips there kind of help you on your entry points if you all are, wanting to learn more about that. There's a whole lot more to it, but those are just some of the basics. So let's dive in what we got here. We got some folks in the chats. Yeah, always a downside. Got to keep that hopium in check. 100% right. Because the thing is, like, everybody wants to make money. But guess what? There's a whole lot of people on the other side of the coin that are shorting that are still saying, nope, we still see a bad geopolitical, bad economic debt cycle, bad business cycle happening. People are starting to lose their jobs. Still not looking good. I'm a short. So there's sell pressure still going, guys. And so that's the thing. For any price to fluctuate, there's always a buy and a sell, and it's an agreement at a certain price level. And so just understanding that a bull run, we may be seeing a little spark here, but for a continuation of a bull run where it's just up for 6 or 8 months at a time, I don't know. It's going to take some convincing for me to see. So that's why I'm being very very tactful about what I'm buying, obviously, but even when I'm buying particular things, and really taking advantage of those capitulations. So in June, incredible opportunity. I know some people are kind of kicking themselves because they didn't pay attention because they were thinking, oh, well, things are just going to keep going lower. This in your head, it's like I have it written down in your framework of thinking when it comes capitulation, especially for Bitcoin, when it's like 4 to 8 days of just incredible down, right? Expect for like a wave. It comes in droves. It's got to settle down, and typically price will settle, and then things get figured out. And then so use those capitulations to at least nibble at the market, at least. I mean, that's what I'm doing. I'm not telling you guys to do that. Not financial advice. Always got to use that disclaimer before somebody comes to me, next capitulation. Hey, it went even lower. Well, even with that, there's a step, a DCA step. Do things in thirds. right? I always talk about that as well. But, you know, anyways, is what it is. If you know, you know. If you don't, you got to learn. So you only learn by doing or by listening to people that have done it. So, yeah, cool. All right, now let's get into this whole China thing. I know that's what the whole thumbnail was. I'm not going to lie. I tried to do some clickbait stuff. I thought people cared about China, but I don't know. I think people are just really like, something to talk about. So we'll see. All right, cool. Let's get back into it. But while I'm here, do y'all have any questions before we move on? My thing is, I wanted to take some time. This ain't just me up here giving a dissertation, but I really want to just have a good conversation, with people, kind of seeing what y'all are thinking. Are y'all seeing what I'm seeing for Ethereum? If you completely disagree, if y'all are just like, I don't know what this guy's talking about, explain more, please let me know. If y'all are saying, hey, you're too long-winded, make it simpler, I can do that too. But I've been getting requests to go more in depth. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. But if not, no questions, let's keep on going. And we'll spend maybe about like 20 minutes on this China stuff and we'll wrap it up. All right, let's get into it. So we're going to talk about China's real estate situation. Let's go into it. All right. So here's an interesting article I read the other day. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but a lot of us heard about Evergrande. They're one of the major developers in China when it comes to building condos. And so out there in China, it's not like the United States where there's a whole bunch of diversity within the types of buildings, like single family homes, then you've got condominiums, then you got townhomes. Over there, it's like majority condos, high rises. That's how they live. They got a lot of people. So building up is what makes sense. That's a real estate thing for all of y'all that don't really pay attention to real estate. That's how you get the butter from the duck. That's how you maximize your revenue, is by building up versus out. You need smaller amounts of land, you can build up. Anyways, I started off with real estate before I even knew crypto was a thing. So with that being said, China's real estate sector has a debt problem. So that's just the biggest thing. First sentence, we can dissect it to the tenths, but I'm not going to. Debt is an instrument to grow and expand. It also is a sword that can cut flesh wounds and could literally cut limbs off when it gets overblown and when people cannot pay that debt back, or they don't want to pay it back and they default. Big problem. Debt is an instrument to expand very fast or contract and have severe crisis extremely fast. So if you don't do this correctly, big problems. So large property developers like Evergrande have racked up massive amounts of debt, leading to construction stoppages and lots of angry homebuyers. So I'll spare you guys the whole read. Essentially, what's going on in China is the way that they do their homes is they say, okay, hey, you want a mortgage? Cool. We're going to be building these homes or these condos. You can go ahead and get the mortgage going. They actually have them pay the mortgages prior to these condos even being finished. So just imagine you're a home buyer or you're a condo buyer and you're already paying a mortgage. And then now typically with their system, within 3 to 6 months it'd be ready to go. But now, since they're in such debt and they're having stoppages, people aren't working because of their COVID shutdown, all of these things, all of these issues, right? And then it's because they've got over leveraged in debt. What we're seeing is the people who take on too much debt get wiped out. Real estate, we've already seen it in crypto, and we're going to continue to see it until everybody's wiped out. It's just what the market needs in order to reset. But with that being said, now with their debt situation, when you become a big company, you get debt easier. So people are like, oh, you've got a lot of things backing you. Hey, we'll give you money. We don't need to see as much. There you go. But like I said, slippery slope, because when you can't produce what you were supposed to and you got a whole bunch of debt, there's problems. Now with people, as they have their system, they stop paying those mortgages because they're not pumping out these condos how they were. There's condos. So Evergrande, they had just whole condo, like we're talking, 50, 100 condos at a time. Just stop. Nope. And it's been 6 months, 8 months, a year. These people are paying their mortgage with no product. Now you can imagine they're going to stop paying, which only perpetuates the debt cycle to even be a worse situation. Because when you're a creditor, so when you credit the debt and it doesn't get serviced, right? And then you don't have anything that you can take as collateral, so no completed property, now you're screwed too. So everybody's it's just a perpetuating cycle. So that's understanding the creditor side and the debtor side of how the debt transactions work. And so the big thing is, with real estate being the largest market across all economies, they're in a lot of trouble, and mainly the creditors. And that's why you see when these people go and revolt and they're going to the bank and say, "Hey, we need our money back." They can't give it to you because guess what? They're not getting interest payments. And at the current time, they're just not printing money out of nowhere. And typically, when they get the money print, they do it in loan type products. Well, guess what? In an economy where the largest market is having some struggles, GDP ain't gonna be great. People are not gonna be spending money like that. So all this stuff works together to hurt itself, right? Um, the question may be, are they really ready for a war that's going to cost a lot of money? What would that do to their country? Can they sustain? Well, questions that we're going to continue to ask and try to answer. So another thing about the real estate market, there's different provinces. So we're going to talk about this mortgage revolt. So number of affected properties. So as you can see, smaller circles to larger circles. So Beijing is the capital, and then pay attention to geographically how things are looking. And I want to point things out in particular. So if you notice, there's this line here. Is that random? Because I had this thought. What is this? How do they travel in this area? All of this stuff comes together. Y'all have to do your Googles. I'm going to save it because I'm not going to go into all of it. But there is a train line that goes along here. Interesting. All these condos around it not being finished. A lot of them are close. A lot of them, when you guys understand construction, it all has to be congruent. It all has to work together. That means when you're doing something to your property, it can't impede on what's close to it. You got to make sure you're doing things well within your area. And so when they're building out a long traveling route, which they're still working on, a lot of it is finished. And I'll leave you guys to research that. But when you're doing new stuff around it, there's a lot of red tape. And so when you have work stoppages and all this stuff, it's just very interesting that there's a lot of money that's supposed to be going into this area, right? So this route of travel for them is a big deal. I wonder if semiconductors have something to do with it. I'm gonna leave you guys to do your own Googles. I'd say maybe it does. But anyway, all of these real estate projects are being affected, right? And at the same time, they're not finishing. This is why people aren't paying their mortgage. And so, as you can see, these top areas here, big issues, right? And this is data as of August, right? So August 2nd. So there's a lot of things going. And so here's what we need to understand. A crackdown on over-leveraged property firms that started in 2020 sparked a liquidity crunch and kept developers like Evergrande out of credit markets, depriving them of cash to complete their apartments. Suddenly, construction that used to take 12 to 18 months was taking 2 years or was halted altogether. All the while, buyers had to keep paying their mortgages, a quirk of the Chinese market where payments start with the pre-sale deposit long before work is completed. Right? Homeowners staring at unfinished gray concrete blocks. So stuff like this. Imagine you paying money every single month and you go and just stare at this. You'd be like, what is going on here? Just imagine. So I'll be mad too. But watching, right, a developer after developer default on their debt began to compare notes and about what to do to salvage their investments. So there's some options, but none of them are really good. And so what I'm gonna do, I'm actually going to link this one. 'Cause I'm gonna spare you guys from going through it because we're gonna wrap up here in a little bit. But China is not as ready for a war as what many people may think. They've got a lot of issues from a credit perspective. So that's the whole thing that I've been trying to kind of talk about more on the channel is how the debt and the credit markets work and how they have final say. So the reason why asset prices can't go up, debt and credit markets, understanding what is going on within bonds. Bonds represent how strong a credit and debt market is within the economy. So offering how much can we give for our bond, for our economy, our status, right? Our dollar or our yen or whatever the denominated currency is, how strong is it? If it's pretty strong, we can offer a decently sized bond yield. And so if you go to read, they have things going on. Social media crackdowns, right? All kind of stuff. They're trying to keep things separated. But what happens is all of these layers keep affecting each other. And that's why you see people over there in the streets going crazy. So credit boom. So they had a credit boom. China's bank loans to the property sector ballooned over the years. And what happens when you do too much, giving loans out too easily to these developers? Maybe something like what happened in 2009 in the United States. This is what happens when you give out credit too easy to people who are not credit worthy, or they are not, or they take too much and you gave them too much. So that's that. Now, here's the thing. Now, how do they combat that? How do they get the focus off of them and then start to say, all right, we got to get the focus off of us? Because if they see that we got this stuff going on, right? Ringtone. If they see that we got this stuff going on, then they can see a weak point. So we need to assert some type of dominance somewhere. We got to get something that makes it look like we're in control because their financial system is not doing well. So look at this. Chinese missiles strike seas off Taiwan and some land near Japan. What? Near Japan? I thought this was just about Taiwan. What is going on near Japan? Questions you need to ask yourself. Japan, the BOJ, the Bank of Japan, we talked about that. Do your Googles. Why are they significant? Why is Japan important? Well, China, they don't really agree with Japan either. Japan is also a small island. Hey, we know some people that live over there. Japan is one of the largest, even though they're a small island, they output a lot. So their GDP is pretty significant. So a day after Nancy Pelosi's trip, China has begun military drills. And so I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to the news, but they've been talking about doing military drills now until I believe the 9th or the 10th of this month. Doing drills for days upon days in the sea where they could go anywhere else. Well, they can go a lot of other places, but they're doing it solely in a circle around Taiwan. Very interesting. They appear to be designed as a trial run for sealing off the island. 5 missiles landed in Japanese waters. So not 1, not 2, but 5. So at least 11 Chinese missiles struck the seas north, south, and east of Taiwan on Thursday, less than 24 hours after Speaker Pelosi celebrated the island. And we'll talk about her going there and why she's trying to say that's a win. It's all just gesturing and posturing. But so the Chinese military called the exercise a prelude to a bigger show of force intended to punish the island for the visit by Ms. Pelosi that challenged Beijing's claims to Taiwan. So they're claiming Taiwan. Da-da-da. And so, I mean, like the biggest thing is, take a look at this. So This stuff, military exercise area. They just got their fleets, just their boats, the big old holes just out here circling Taiwan. Like this is popcorn worthy. They're trying hard because they got an initiative to get to as well. Because it's a battle. It's a battle. Reserve currency. This is one of the biggest things. You need technology to get that type of power. They need to tap in a suggestive but non-suggestive way. I'll say that. But approximate missile paths, so you can kind of see kind of where they came from, but just splashing around. Oh, just kind of close enough, but not really. We're not going to hurt anybody. We're just going to do this stuff that could kill a whole lot of people. Just let you know it's possible. So just like somebody that kind of comes down the way, just be like, you know what? I'm not a fighter, but just know I could, that's kind of what they're trying to do. But they also are known to say, hey, we want to impose some force here. And so the interesting thing is their exercise area has gotten closer because you look at this 1995, a little bit closer to their shore and a little bit further away from Taiwan, but now they're getting closer. So exercises will be held in areas less than 10 miles from the coast. That's close. And so the United States has been encouraging regional allies to rally around Taiwan and has sped up efforts to improve the island's defense capabilities. So here we go again. The United States coming in, hey, we got you. Let us sell you some weapons. But in return, let's get some of those chips. Hey, we're your ally. We'll take care of you. Maybe we could send some Navy ships over towards your way. So let's take a look at that. But first, let's watch this. If I get copyright infringement, so be it. I'm just going to watch this briefly. Turn this volume up. It's very interesting.
Picking up positions around Taiwan ahead of 4 days of live fire exercises. Beijing announced the exercises as part of its reaction to the US House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan.
Taiwan's highest civilian honor, awarded to its high-profile guest of honor. Top US politician Nancy Pelosi proudly displayed her new medal on this brief but brazen visit. She's here in defiance of Chinese warnings and even the advice of her own president.
Not true.
Today, the world faces a choice between democracy and autocracy. America's determination to preserve democracy here in Taiwan and around the world remains ironclad.
The gratitude all too clear from the leader of this self-governed island, which China views as a breakaway region that it wants to control by force if necessary.
Thank you for taking concrete actions to show your staunch support for Taiwan at this critical moment and for expressing the US's consistent policy supporting Taiwan's self-defense.
As the third most powerful politician in Washington visited various sites, she'd have been all too aware the issue of Taiwan is the most sensitive in US-China relations. Washington agrees to have formal diplomatic ties only with Beijing and to keep its contact with Taipei more unofficial under a long-standing policy of one China. It's why the sight of the touring US House Speaker has sparked such fury.
It is an outright farce. Under the guise of democracy, the US is infringing on China's sovereignty.
Look at the finger
In response to Pelosi's visit, the Chinese military is conducting its largest drills aimed at Taiwan in more than 25 years. They're expected to take place within these 6 boxed-off areas encircling the island. The main live firing exercises from the air and the sea are due to last from Thursday through to Sunday. Now, neither side say they want a war, but an accidental exchange could ignite just that.
Accidental.
The G7 group of nations have voiced concern and say China's moves risk increasing tensions and destabilizing the region. Taiwan's defense ministry posted this video to make clear it's ready to fight if necessary.
Guys.
Any move either side makes is now viewed through the prism of the very real war in Ukraine, with China and Taiwan both drawing lessons from.
So they're trying to rile their people up to get them to see things in a certain way. You know? And that's that. Like, the thing is, let me see here really quickly. Taiwan doesn't do the news they promise Ukraine. The same bogus people be falling for anything. I mean, if you just take things for face value and never have a own unique thought of, maybe it's something different. But go and just start to understand more history, understand how power between countries work. All of these things are important. But here's the thing. There's a whole lot of little chess moves that are being played. United States saying, hey, we need to come in because we need to benefit. This island right here is going to help us get closer to hopefully keeping our reserve currency status for maybe another 5 years. Maybe another, if we can, maybe another, because it's being torn down. Russia, China. Matter of fact, we'll do it. I'm going to do it. I just got to do it. So there's a whole nother initiative. And so I will do this one for you. I forget the name. It starts with a B. If any of you guys know it, it's where these countries are getting together opposite of NATO. I know it's India and Brazil's in there. Yeah, it's called BRIC. There we go. So let me show you guys this. And so this isn't anything new, because all this stuff we think is new. It's just finally fizzling up to the top now to where we can see. But none of this stuff is new. So BRIC, it's an acronym. Brazil, Russia, India, China. There's a whole lot of people in all these countries. Whole lot of people, a lot of manpower, a lot of people that you can give propaganda to. So let's go to here, South Africa as well. So the thesis became conventional market wisdom, right? And then, so here's the thing. BRICS started in 2001, long time ago, coined by Goldman Sachs. As we said, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. South Africa was added. So understanding. It's important to note that Goldman Sachs' thesis wasn't that these countries would become a political alliance, like the EU, or even a formal traditional association. Instead, Goldman said that they had the potential to perform a powerful economic bloc. So powerful economic bloc, even acknowledging that its forecasts were optimistic and dependent on significant policy assumptions. Let's see here. Take part in the crypto giveaway. No thanks. I want to get into something that explains a little bit more. But the biggest thing is these are all people that don't agree with the way that the United States does anything. India won't say it out. Well, they've said it, but no, they don't agree with what goes on here in the United States. But seeing this right here, this picture, very interesting deal here. South Africa, they've got a lot of resources here. India, they got a lot of people, a lot of things going on there. But South Africa in particular, big battleground. People can understand how important Africa is, especially South Africa, to understand why China and Russia are doing what they're doing right now. This is all a power play, and the more allies that they can have and whatever they need to do to make themselves and their allies more powerful for what's coming is what they're going to do. So a breakaway region, as what they call it, if they need to do that, that's something that they're going to take the punt on. But the thing is, can they do it right now in the state that they're in? I think it's a far stretch, but I don't know. I mean, these men, this guy nuts, this guy probably a little nuts too. Anytime that there's 1 point of control where they have a lot of sovereignty over certain decisions, it wouldn't surprise me if something, But that's why the markets that we're in, people, when it comes to money and investing, they react to what happens here. And so understanding what happens here and the severity and the propaganda and understand what things are trying to be portrayed, right? Because here in the United States, it's being portrayed that we're not in recession, but people are losing their jobs. It's being portrayed that, inflation, it's not going to be a big thing for a long period of time. And we'll go back to 2%. I don't think we're going to hit 2% inflation for some time. But I just want to do that, just show you that this is a lot of people that they are under the influences. And when you can have influence over people, there's power in that. So now I'll leave it at that. We went on a million different tangents, but I would say I don't think China's quite fully ready for a full war. They know the United States is a heavy ally and that they might come in and try to do some stuff. I read an article that there's some U.S. Navy ships that are in that region as well. So they're flexing, but I don't think they're going to do too much stuff right now. And that's that. As far as the markets are doing what they do, being very unpredictable at bottoms and longer than what we expect 9 times out of 10. So with the relief rallies, if you know how to trade them, great. If not, sit back, chill, wait for the next dip, accumulate, and then wait for the long-term play. Long-term play is to be able to accumulate as much as you can, good assets. That's up to you to do the research on. If you need some help, right? I don't know, maybe get in touch with some services. Hit me up. You know how to contact me. I don't know, maybe shoot some comments in here. I may be able to talk some things over. But nonetheless, get your game plan. My thing is always stay focused, execute the game plan, but then know what's going around you. If you can do that, you give yourself a great chance. If you're oblivious and you're throwing money at stuff, good luck. And with that being said, I appreciate y'all. So before we end this, if you haven't, smash the like button. If you guys enjoyed my whole dissertation, I don't do this often. I'm normally just straight to business. Let's do this. Let's talk about this. How do we make money? How do we protect ourselves? All that kind of stuff. That's what we normally do, right? But today, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on around us. I think that's important. Big date to make note of, right? August 10th, we got the CPI print, see what inflation is doing, and we'll go from there. So until then, I appreciate you guys, right? Let's address the chat one last time. So why build it if they really plan on helping them? Why build? I'm not quite sure what you mean by it. If you're referring to, let me see, why build it if they plan on helping them? I'm not quite sure if you're talking about it. What do you mean by it? If you want to put that in the chat. Oh, I see what you're saying. So the states started building a joint in Texas but started. So here's the thing, there's a current thing. So starting means it's not yet done. So just because they're starting something, that means for it to actually be big enough and to be able to be in circulation enough to make a mass effect, expect a year. So they got to figure something out for this year. That's the key thing there. And so, because this stuff just doesn't just, oh yeah, tomorrow things are going to get up and going. And all this stuff takes time to solve, right? Nothing just happens overnight or even over a span of a couple months. So if they start building or they start getting the infrastructure together to do a whole bunch of chips here, they got a whole bunch of money that's supposed to be going to it. Don't expect to start actually seeing that come to fruition as a consumer until a year later. Just like when they put a whole bunch of money into the system, don't expect to see the outcome of that till a year later. So for example, just pay attention, a whole bunch of money being given to everybody, March, April 2020, tops of crypto market, year later, March, April 2021. Things work in time. So when they announce something, understand this is what the trajectory is. Plan accordingly. When you see bills that come into enactment, so for example, the CHIPS Act, another bill, I think it was what, $380 billion, signed, set in stone, good to go. Make note of the date. Effects happen a year later. So yeah, cool. All right, y'all. Well, dang, I'm going a lot longer than I expected. But I appreciate y'all for grinding this one out with me. It's been fun. Really getting a chance to do this stuff. My goal is to come on and just keep streaming more and more and more. If you guys are liking the content, tell a friend. Let's see if we can grow the community. Leave a comment. If you guys have your thoughts on what you think China's gonna do over, I don't know, let's say, what is China gonna do over the next month? I'd like to know in the comments. So if y'all have an idea, put in the comments and I'll reply. And we'll keep talking about this stuff. But until then, hope y'all have a good night, good morning, wherever you may be. Hope everything's well. Stay safe. Hey, and come out here in these markets, be informed, be savvy, do what you got to do, and hopefully you can execute your plan. I know where I'm going. I hope you're going somewhere positive and getting to that point to where you're saying, hey, I did what I came here to do, and that was achieve success. So whatever that may look like for you. All right, that's it. Peace.